on Britain in the European Parliament, but the fact of being in a glass house has never previously stopped Nick Clegg throwing stones, which is why I think he has so much glass smashing around him right now. If the point of this, I think, was aimed as the criticism of Ed and Ed, I think Ed and Ed are doing a really good job at the moment. I think that the work that Ed Miliband is doing in terms of the things he's been talking about today on tuition fees and actually identifying serious pressures that are facing families across the country who are really worried now about whether their children are going to be able to go to university. Being able to highlight that is hugely important. And so I think that as a team they're doing a good job. If there's a wider question here though about how we should extend the diversity of the party, that is important, and we do need to do more to get people from all kinds of backgrounds coming into the Labour Party. That means women as well as men, it means people from different parts of the country, different kind of social backgrounds, different skill backgrounds, and we've got to keep that going. And I think that some of the work around having the Labour Party supporters is a good way to do that, and it should be a challenge for us for the future.
Thank you. Phil. Sorry, Phil.
Yes, I think it's true. There are too many backroom boys at the top of the Labour Party, but then there are too many backroom boys at the top of all the parties. George Osborne and David Cameron were themselves backroom boys not long ago. I heard a tale recently of when George Osborne was working for William Hague, which shows a sense of entitlement that gives them. Osborne was a young, callow youth then, even more so than he is now, saw that Hague was on the front cover of the Financial Times, pictured with the then President. And Osborne turned to Hague and he said to him, "Did you ever think when you were growing up in Rotherham that one day you'd be on the front cover of the Financial Times?" To which Hague replied, "Of course I did, you idiot." And I think that transition up the elevator from backroom boys into politics is a problem for politics, not a problem for the Labour Party, narrowly defined. It is a problem. Politics is too narrow and too professional. But it was a cheap jibe in a conference speech. Secondly, I think we should stick up for backroom boys. I think there's a tendency in this government in particular to deride the role that people in the back rooms play. In fact, they play a vital role. And one of the many things I think the government are getting wrong is the belief that you can contract out all your work and not have a grip at it from the centre of government. So I think they're in a mess precisely because they don't have sufficiently good backroom boys. So it's a really foolish jibe as well as a narrow part of the drama.
But can I just chip in there? I mean, Phil, was not one of the purposes of this comment to suggest that, in the top of the Labour hierarchy now, there are two figures who are very closely associated with what the public perceives as disastrous Brown regime, Brown premiership.
Oh, I agree.
Is that not the point?
That's right. The jibe was aimed at Gordon. The unnamed person was Gordon Brown. That was the jibe. It was the association with what, in Nick Clegg's view, was a failed and disastrous government. That's clearly the association.
Okay, Morris, too many backroom boys, not enough peers of Brown, maybe.
I would think. So, first of all, just to say how much I appreciate the invitation from the Fabians. To wish you well in your job. It's a difficult relationship we've got, but I think we should persevere. And secondly, I mean, I think it's very important that we do have a reckoning with what was wrong. Particularly with Brown's premiership, the lack of vision, the disappointment, and obviously just hearing dribs and drabs the virtually psychopathic nature of the relationship with people at the top of government. That's one thing. But the real thing I want to address here is that I think it's frustrating for people that there is a discussion going on behind closed doors. I think it's absolutely vital that as a party we actually relearn the art of talking to each other, disagreeing with each other, having some kind of civil discussion. I think it's very important events like this, but we've got to do them in constituency parties. But essentially, we're not getting a glimpse on the real nature of the political discussion that's going on. So there's these furious rows, but we don't know really what they're about, and then they're briefed in the media. So I think we've got 2 years. It's where we are in 2 years' time that really matters. And I think that we should make a real collective decision to engage in a genuine public conversation with each other about where we should be.
Sorry, just on that, does it matter having furious rows and start the process of moment?
No,
or is it a good thing?
I don't think right now we could row as much as we like and make people remember. It's it's very important that we have a broad-based consensus within the party about where we should go, that it's not factional, that it's not like it was. I don't think the party was brought along for the journey, and I think it's absolutely vital that we do have that debate.
Okay, Andrew.
Part of the reason that Clegg called them Backroom Boys was this impression of inexperience he wanted to give. This week we published some polling looking at the public perception of Ed, and he is rated identically to where Cameron was a year into Cameron's leadership. We must be very careful of sort of accepting a myth that Ed is inexperienced and can't cut it, versus Cameron, who in hindsight there was this inevitable glide path being Prime Minister. Well, that wasn't true. He was inexperienced. He struggled to connect with the public in his first year. People didn't know who he was or what he stood for, and that's been true of all leaders of the opposition. Go back to when Tony was a new leader of the opposition, he was Bambi. And in hindsight, that seems an incredible thing. So inexperience is always going to be something that new leaders of the opposition have thrown at them. The wider point on the diversity of the political classes, and particularly at the top, I totally agree with what's been said. I think it is incredibly sad, whatever their personal merits, that all three party leaders are white men aged between 40 and 45. It is just such a narrow segment of the population. The job I've just come from, working for Age UK, I did an awful lot of work on age discrimination, working with people as young as 50 who couldn't get a job because of their age. And we need to think about the message we send out, not just on age, but on every aspect of identity. When people look at political leadership, they see such a small part of society affected.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that?